Good evening. Today we're going to be talking about weak men issues. You know, there's a lot of women who are dealing with a lot of weak men. And it's sad to say, but we as women who have been single mothers, many of us have caused the men to become weak. In my book that's entitled talking about describing the iniquities of weak men, it kind of covers these issues because what's happening today, the men are being so tormented emotionally by controlling women, and many of the women who are controlling have felt that they needed to do everything on their own. They had to do everything because the men did not live up to, or so many men were missing in action as it relates to being a father, to the point that they didn't trust them. And then when they got married, men, these single women, when they got married, what they did is they got men who would just be yes men, not men that would be strong, men that would know how to say yes and no to situations that, you know, maybe they didn't want to be bothered with a certain thing, or didn't want to agree with something, or just want to be left alone. You know, when we get a strong-willed woman, that woman will worry you to death. A lot of them will. I've been there. But they don't realize that that's what they're doing, because they're the type of woman who is like trying to take care of business, trying to make sure things flow. Whereas sometimes men will drag their feet. But many women, over the decades that I know, and watching different women who I've had relationships with, are very controlling. And many of these women have caused the men to become very weak. And we raise weak boys. And when we raise these weak boys, that is because we allow them to, you know, to do things they shouldn't be doing, or having them do lady stuff, women stuff. And there's not really a difference, but you have to be careful with some of these things that we allow these young men to do. Because I know when I was coming up, my brothers, I always wanted them to do my hair, you know, plait my hair, or press my hair, or whatever back then. And, you know, I always felt like that was something, you know, wasn't right about that. The way they would always want to be in there just cooking certain things, and, you know, it just didn't look right. But I know this example may not make sense to you, but some stuff we got to recognize and call a spade a spade. And you know how they always saying now, you know, it is what it is. But it's going to be our responsibility not to call it is what it is. That means you're giving life to it. Really, my thing is, it is what it ain't. And that means you need to start calling it what it should be. And it ain't going to be what it is what it is. It's not going to be that you're going to keep tolerating the man to be weak because you feel like that you can handle things better. A lot of you women who may be listening, a lot of men that may be listening, because you know that you've been, you know, you were birthed out of a mother who controlled everything, and now you allow the wife to control everything. So now you married your mother. But the fact of the matter is, you got to take control and take some authority against the spirit, where you cause yourself to be what I call a guilt gatherer. And when you get in this state, you begin to feel guilty about everything that you do, because they made you feel like you're just too sorry and too weak to do anything. They were always saying, like, I'll just take care of it, I'll do it, never mind. You know, and making you feel like, what's the use? But I want to share a couple of characteristics that usually happens when this particular spirit, you know, guilt is a terrible motivator in anybody's life, because what happens is that it actually starts to make you feel that everything is destructive, everything that you do is weak, or that it can't ever amount to anything, and that you got to go back and tell your wife or your friend, girlfriend, that you know you couldn't get it done, or you know you need more information, or you're not really understanding. And so that makes them feel like, oh God, you know, man, you can't do that, you know. But women's mouths have crushed men over the decades, and that's why a lot of men feel weak and act weak, because they've allowed them to lay around, they've allowed them to just do nothing. And so this is why so many women allow men to stay with them and don't do anything and don't work, because this has caused the men to become weak, to the point that when they do get with a woman, they expect that woman to let them lay down, not work, not do anything, you know, don't help take the trash out, don't do anything, don't even help, you know, make decisions. You just do it all. And so they're weak. I'm trying to slow this thing down. But this guilt, as I said before, is a terrible motivator in anybody's life. It is especially destructive when it works on those who they're trying to please. And this pleaser mentality is often causing different types of behaviors to bounce off of you. And I want you to look at these different ones. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to get through all of them, but these are some of the ones I want you to make sure you recognize that could be happening in your life, young man, or preacher, or whomever that may be listening to this. But women, I hope you understand too that the first thing is they feel bad about past mistakes, which can go all the way back to their childhood, and they feel the need to suffer, you know, or attain for this sin or whatever it is that they feel like they've been too weak about. They think, you know, that bad things only happen to them, or they guess that they deserve this thing. So, and that's because sometimes women will cut these men down so low to tell them they don't do sex good. You know, you can't get nothing right. You know, you just need, I make more money than you, and just, you know, all the stuff that women have said. And I'm a living testimony of that, because I was like that. Just call my husband sorry. You know, you can't cut the yard. Look at the yard. You're just a pitiful man. You know, I would say these things because I felt that, you know, he just wasn't living up to my expectations. And so that's what caused this gathering of guilt in men and making them weak. But I want to say that we need to learn how to differentiate between healthy feelings or regret, because many times the regret or the remorse is a false, a false guilt trip that a lot of women put you on, and that's because they want to make you feel like you need to be feeling sorry, you need to be feeling like, you know, that you're out of order, because they're trying to control you. Now, to feel guilty of something, that means you feeling like that you have done something that you shouldn't have done. But to feel a sense of guilt, that means not guilty, but guilt, that means that you feel a sense of something that you should have done that may have been wrong, but not that you're responsible for something that you did wrong. And so that's the difference. We need to differentiate the healthy feelings that the person should have to have, and not be on this unhealthy guilt trip. You know, to feel remorse is to admit that something is wrong or hurtful, you know, which violates the person's ethical standards. But you don't have to distort this, which means that you don't have to get it in your mind, man, to keep telling yourself you're bad, or you're immoral, or you have an immoral character, or that you don't know how to do anything right. See, this remorse or this regret, it's aimed at trying to make you feel that you're so guilty toward yourself, and that is not sensible. You've got to recognize that this is coming and bouncing off the person who's trying to have you gather up guilt so you can feel weak. And then the second thing is you got to live according to you try to live according to the expectation of others. You don't have to continue to try to live up to the expectations of others, but if you're dating or you're married, you want to come to a sensible agreement. You don't want to agree to disagree. You want to make sure that you have a sensible agreement, especially when it's something that's trying to make you feel like you're weak or unwise. So when you have this type of mentality that's coming across to you, you want to think to yourself, what could you possibly do to make it right? You want to make sure that you don't have to be like a people pleaser, and you don't want to live by this other person's rules, but you want to make sure that you have this game plan or this agenda that is going to be able to be a benefit for both of you. But this kind of destructive pattern is usually evident in marriages a lot, and the reason why is because wherever the controlling person is, or this abusive person verbally, this would cause a man to become distant or keep his own playing rules, or keep her own playing rules, and this causes a lot of discord. It causes a lot of bitterness in the marriage and the relationship, and becomes very, very breached, and then it's hard to get together on anything. Can't get no communication on anything. The man becomes very weak and drawn back. Then the third thing is living by somebody else's rules, which naturally leads you to a responsibility and blame for most of whatever goes wrong in that house or relationship. See, what this is false guilt. This false guilt drives you to, or drives that person who causing themselves to think that they can get you to do whatever they want you to do so they can feel good or feel big. But this false guilt drives you to feel like you're trying to be a people pleaser, and it automatically begins to make you think, oh, it's all my fault. Oh, I'm always to blame. Then you want to check yourself for how you often say these things. You're saying this, I'm always, or I never. See, the psychological term for this is overgeneralization, and it's a great way to, to wallow in this guilt thing, this guilt gathering. You've got to get a hold of yourself, brother. Whenever you overgeneralize, you leave yourself wide open for pain and rejection. When people disagree with you or criticize you or turn you down, you automatically react to think that it's always wrong or it's never going to be right. You overgeneralizing will always lead you to feel guilty or have you gather guilt. Because why? Because you're trying your best to please somebody. And then the fourth thing and final one is the guilt gatherer. See, what you're doing, you're becoming a guilt gatherer because you're trying to be pleasing, but yet you're being weak. See, this guilt gathering mentality makes you feel that you would rather suffer than change. See, what this don't make any sense, because see, what it's making you feel like, I'm able to stay and wallow in this because I don't want to leave her, I don't want to leave the relationship, I love them, but what is happening, you're suffering silently. And many a times you will go through life, driven by guilt, but not doing anything about it, because you just got to take the counsel that you need to make sure that this woman or this person or whoever it is that's causing you to gather guilt. What happens is it is actually easier, it seems like, for you to worry and be anxious about breaking the rules of whoever this person is than it is to make new ones, or to own your own, idea of what you feel is different. One of the major hurdles for everybody to ever conquer as it relates to feeling guilty, or in this type of relationship thing where one is being strong or one is being, so hard on the mate, is to make the decision to really change. And you've got to make the decision that you won't change, that you're not going to allow this woman or this person to continue to try to make you feel weak or worthless or useless. See, too many people perceive change as more painful than what? The present situation. And so you've got to say, no, I know it's going to hurt me to tell her no, or that I'm not going to stay here any longer. I'm not going to deal with this relationship with you talking me down and make me feel weak, or that you become weak to the point that you find yourself just, so crowded into this thing that you just fold. But please, you got to know that maybe because you're in the situation that is so unpleasant and frustrating, or even it makes you so mad, or it puts you in this this rage that you want to get violent. But you need to at least think about this, because most of the time you're doing this is because it seems more familiar to you to stay in it than to come out. The familiar zone is always the dangerous zone, because it makes you weak. It makes you so recognizable with a thing that you'd rather be in that place than to do anything different, so you won't, how to say, rock the boat. But this familiar place somehow feels safer. It somehow seems more desirable than the unknown or the change. So what do? You put up with the problem. But that's not the answer. You have got to know that in order for you to decrease this, what I call the guilt gathering mentality, you've got to stop feeling guilty. You've got to stop feeling and acting weak. It's not only foolish, but it can be harmful as well to you emotionally. Remember, Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, it says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. And everything that you are truly feeling, whether that person is controlling, whether they're manipulative, or whatever that is, or they just downright mean and wicked and want to make you appear to be weak and guilty for whatever didn't turn out the way they wanted to. But these issues, the Bible says here in Proverbs, that you've got to keep your heart with all diligence. That means you've got to keep your heart in love and peace. Why? Because for out of it are the issues of life that will flow. They're going to flow out mean, they're going to flow out violent, or they can flow out anger, they can flow out where you just start to cheat, or you can get so tired of being told that you're sorry and weak that every issue that you have kept inside now will become an attack to that person that keeps making you feel weak or less than. You've got to break free before what? The issues of life overtake you. Listen to me, brother. It's up to you.